Tanya, take it away. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Kate. I am happy to be here. As you guys saw in my silly picture, campfire is my favorite part of camp. So I get a little wild and crazy at campfire, but that's where I get to be a kid and I try to ignore all the adulting. So how did MYDA come to be? We lost the chapter of the American Diabetes Association in Montana due to COVID, which many camps throughout the United States did. And with that, throughout the years, we had lost Family Retreat. We had lost our big fundraiser. And I kind of had that feeling that, camp was going to be next. So with COVID and they, without 50% of their staff, I had a friend of mine come up to me at work and said, have you ever thought about starting a nonprofit? And I said, well, where do I sign? So she came over that Thursday and we literally signed up for all of the 501c3 IRS information and all that jazz. And for my Christmas present in 2019, I received a letter from the IRS saying we were officially a 501c3 nonprofit organization with a mission to help kids and families with type 1 diabetes. And throughout the years, we've expanded that. And I think, the three major things that we do are helping families tremendously. Actually, we can prove that in our numbers. The things we do are camp, obviously. We do have a 5-day, 4-night overnight residential camp that can occupy up to 150 kids, which is my goal someday. And the first year we had 124. Last year we had a little bit less just because I think of the timing, which was 114. Also, last year the year before last, 2022, was our first overnight residential camp that had happened since COVID. Although we were established in 2019, obviously we spent that year preparing what we needed. We're grassroots, we're bare from the bottom. Worked with a few other camps to create policies and procedures and forms and documentation. And 2021 happened. We were all gung-ho and COVID roared its ugly head again. So I did tell my medical team in that meeting, I said, well, if we're not going to have an overnight residential camp, what is our solution? So we packed up and MYDA hauled a trailer from, we did a day camp in the Flathead. We drove to Helena, had a day camp in Helena on Wednesday, drove to Billings and had a day camp in Billings. So we had about 20 to 25 kids at each one. Billings had 32, I think. Very successful. Hopefully, we'd prove to families that we were going to be there and we were going to do what we planned on doing. And we did it to the best of our abilities. So we do have the camp and it includes, we stress diabetes education, exercise, arts and crafts. And then, of course, it's right there on the beautiful Flathead Lake. So we do a lot of swimming, campfire, dance, socials, things like that, talent shows. We have a family retreat typically in March. Our goal with that is a lot of these kids leave camp pumped up with watching all of their friends and all their mentors and all these adults taking care of their diabetes. So we figure about 6 months is where they start to go downhill again and not caring about that exciting part of taking care of your diabetes. So to get them back together in March, about 6 months after camp, we want to get them pumped up. They're seeing their friends, they're talking about it. And it's just a nice little break throughout the year for them to get back together. Our last 2 family retreats, we've had a lot of great speakers, TrialNet and Sanify on the prevention markers, pre-testing. We have nutrition. We have a scavenger hunt, so we try to make it fun. And we're learning and growing with that one too. The really fun thing for these families is the vendors. They get to go around, and if we have newly diagnosed families, who do they sit down and talk to and be like, oh, is Tandem the best? Is Omnipod the best? Is Medtronic the best? What is the best for our families? And and what are our opportunities? What resources are out there for us? So it's a great weekend event. We provide dinner and breakfast. This year we provided a dance, so that was kind of fun. Just to get those families communicating, collaborating. A lot of these parents, I mean, we think about our kids all the time, but a lot of these parents are just as lost and scared as the kid, but they're the ones that have to be brave. So it is a great opportunity for them to get together and collaborate and visit and just kind of bounce ideas off of each other. Obviously, we do have a little bit of involvement with schools and families. I have more of my questions for that are going to be for you guys. And then we do fundraiser every year. And this year was last weekend. We did our fundraiser. And we did a silent auction, a 3-gun raffle. We only sold 300 tickets for the raffle, but everything was incredibly successful. We had an all-you-could-eat taco bar and live music here in East Helena. We do try and keep most all of our events, weekend events, in Helena, Butte, or this area simply because it has interstates that come from all direction. It makes it pretty easy for families. So that is, my last big thing, out-of-pocket assistance. So we do help families with out-of-pocket assistance with self-management diabetes supplies, which means you can see on this list a plethora of items that they can purchase, and then they go to our website and request financial assistance. We do ask them to purchase it first, provide a receipt, and then we reimburse them within a few days, simply because we don't have the capacity to doing the shopping and the bargaining and the shipping and the middleman work. So whatever, it's $500 for each family, or no, for each kid in each family. So I have several that have 2 kids, bless their hearts, with type 1 diabetes that use this yearly. So they can get up to $500 in help a year to offset those costs. Again, my strategic plan, my goal is to increase that for next year. We're sitting at about 15,000 for that this year, and we're sitting in May, and we've already almost reached 9. So hopefully we can get some more funding and be able to increase that to where there is no necessarily limits to being able to help just 32 families. So those are the big pieces of what MYDA does. And our as you've seen, our mission was written out as a nonprofit organization dedicated to strengthening children, teens, and their families as a whole by equipping them with education that will better sustain a healthy life to living with type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is an isolating, overwhelming, adding new and critical things to an individual's daily routine. Day-to-day diabetes management requires interaction of the entire family, from checking blood sugar, counting carbohydrates, dosing insulin, and adjusting for physical activity and supporting mental health. So that's kind of our long version of our mission. It's not as basic as a really boring mission. And reimbursement, our events. Obviously it takes a slew, an army of people to do all of this. We have medical and non-medical at camp. We have medical students at camp, which are considered medical support. So lead medical are those who have a license to dose with this insulin. So your MDs, DOs, PAs, NPs. There is an algorithm or a policy that is being created for those with an RN or an LPN as long as they have diabetes experience, and that gives them a little bit more ability to do some dosing there. Each year we increase and expand our training for camp. So if you know an MD that isn't fluent in type 1 diabetes but wants to volunteer, we'll make sure they're fully trained before they come. And so we do have a medical director and a medical do we call Jody? A committee. She's the head committee coordinator. And that's Jody McElvain out of Billings and Nathan Bingham out of Kalispell. And they work closely together to make sure all the training videos, all that information goes out before camp. And then we do orientation as well at camp. We don't, it's our goal to ensure that everybody going into this is comfortable in taking care of these kids. And a lot of times when you're talking about it, it's scary. It's scary to take care of a type 1. And that's kind of what I was telling Kate. I'm like, wow, these school nurses, I never even considered it. I mean, what heroes beyond heroes. It blows my mind to not only worry about a kid with type 1, but, what if they have celiac? What if, you have kids with EpiPens and crazy allergies, and you have kids with, Parkinson's and all these crazy things that you guys have to worry about. What can we do? How can we be involved to maybe better streamline this for you guys, or provide more information or resources that better to just kind of take that burden off of you? And so that's going to be part of my questions to you guys too. But we want to help wherever we can. We love that you can help wherever you can. So camp, usually the volunteers there sign up fast, especially with the students. Our goal with the students is that whatever medical profession they think they want to go into, they come to camp, have an amazing experience, and be like, oh no, I want to be in diabetes. And we're going to go back to Montana. That's our goal there. And we've done it with 2 already. So that's pretty cool. But camp's the best part of it, right? And to make camp happen takes year-round volunteers. And, that doesn't mean, it could mean fundraising, the family retreat. It could mean medical or non-medical, or when it gets closer to camp, do you want to do arts and crafts? Do you want to do programming, nutritional education, exercise games? Do you know campfire songs? So it takes an army to do both, run camp and make camp happen. So if any of you are truly heartfelt about diabetes and you want to make sure that you can help us in any way you can, there's the link for the year-round volunteers. Some of these camp committee positions that you may or may not want to go to camp, but you want to help camp happen. You're looking at 3 or 4 months of meetings versus fundraising, which we're working on all year round, or marketing, which is all year round. But also, there's just a need in all we do. So, what am I missing, Kate? See, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? That's Flathead Lake. Those were our counselors getting ready to pick up their campers. I guess I could add that part. We do have a bus that buses kids from Billings to camp. It starts in Billings and stops in Bozeman, Helena, Missoula, and then ends at camp. The driver stays the week, and then he buses them back, and the same stops happen. The bus has to have medical professionals on it. We have to get lunches and low treatments ready to be on the bus. All of their documentation to be completed before they get on the bus. And that bus usually fills up. We had 56 on the bus last year. So there's another piece to what we do.
Do you want to talk about some of the impacts that you've seen from families and kids participating both in camp, but then also now that you've done 2 years worth of the family retreat and sort of the gap that's filled, both education-wise and then sort of community-wise?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned at camp, we stress on the diabetes education, nutrition education, exercise, and then the fun stuff, arts and crafts and swimming. But our goal when these kids are at camp is 1, to have fun, and 2, to send them home much more independent than what they came. And that'll be, another one of my questions to you is, what do you see do you see more overbearing parents, or do you find that parents aren't as involved? And we see both at camp, and it affects us completely differently, and we have to obviously, deal with it completely differently. And, I've had experiences to where I had one kid, the mom would only let him eat A, B, C, and D. And so he came to camp, and against our kitchen rules, he got his food. And so he was segregated because he had his food in a dish that he was only allowed to eat. And he was so badly wanted to eat some of the meals that the camp was providing. And we weren't going to, if he wants to eat it, he's his own young man. And the mom just wasn't happy, and she came and picked him up, and she's like, I was the one who wasn't ready for this. The kid was all about it, but the mom, wow, overbearing. So that's kind of, you get these kids that are like, I can't take my insulin because I'm waiting for my medical person. I know what I'm doing. And you're like, great, let's be involved in the care. Can you tell me, educate me? How many carbohydrates did you eat, or are you going to eat? What does your pump say? Do you know what to do if you didn't have your pump? Do you know what your insulin to carb ratio is? So we challenge them, right? Like we all think we know it all, but do we, when it comes down to it? And it just kind of makes them stop and think. And we try to push the idea of, oh my gosh, you're older kids now. You're going to go to college. Have you asked your parents about how to order your diabetes supplies? What happens if your pump runs, breaks when you're in college? Do you know these emergency resources? Do you know how to take care of yourself? The big thing that I tell them is that it doesn't matter if mom and dad, or husband, wife, or boyfriend, girlfriend, or sister, brother, best friend, at some point you're going to be by yourself, and you are the only one who is responsible for you, and you have to know it all. And it's a lot, and it's overwhelming, and hot dang, it can be tough on some days, especially sick days. We educate about sick days. Dealing with that myself. I couldn't even get off the couch yesterday because I was busy blowing my nose. And, I forgot, holy crap, Tanya, you got to be drinking water. So I got all dehydrated, and I was a mess, and my blood sugar was 280, and there was no constant controller because I wasn't eating right. I wasn't exercising, and I was sleeping most of the time. So it was just making sure that it doesn't have to be perfect all the time. Just know how to make sure, to be as close to perfect. Be involved in your care, however that may look, and make sure that, when you're on your own, you know how to take care of yourself, and know that everybody around you at camp there knows what you're going through. And I think, I just was on Voices of Montana the other day, and he goes, again, tell me the impact. And I said, there's some of these kids that live in rural Montana, and they've never seen another person with a pump or take an insulin shot. And when you look around, you hear these beeps, beeps, all over camp, and everybody's pulling out their pumps. They're like, oh, who is it? And, oh, it's me, Johnny. It just creates this family environment. And that's what I stress at family retreat to the kids and to the parents. Like, look at this. You're not alone. So I have my kids who, how have you had diabetes less than a year? Stand up. And of course, all of us are looking at them, but then we have the kids who have had diabetes for 40 years stand up. And you just proved that you are in a community, you are with a group of people that understand you. And if you're having a diabetes day, you call that friend, and that friend's going to be like, I know exactly how you feel, and you're going to believe them. It's not going to be mom and dad that are like, oh, I understand, because no, you don't, and a lot of these kids and these families do go on beyond camps and family retreats, exchanging numbers. I just had one at a fundraiser yesterday. Girls, one camp won the campership for free campership, and she has yet to ever be to camp. And she was just so excited that not only is it going to be her first year at camp, but she gets to go for free. So her and another girl shared numbers, and they've been talking ever since. And you just got to love and appreciate the connection that you can make between that. and make changes in these kids' lives. And, you know, I tell them some days are going to be hard, but I promise you it's never going to be hard enough not to fight for. So, reach out. You got a family and come back to camp every year, no matter how old you are.